Before we begin, remember this line. No man is an island. No life stands alone. And when one person dies, something in all of us dies with them. This is not just a war story. This is a story about what it means to live when death is standing right in front of you. Today on English Bookshelf, we are stepping into one of the most powerful novels ever written, For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. So imagine this. You are deep in the mountains of Spain. The air is cold. The sound of gunfire is far away, but not far enough. You know your mission could cost you your life. And you have only 3 days left. 3 days to complete the mission. 3 days to face fear. 3 days to fall in love. And 3 days to decide what your life truly means. This is where our story begins. The novel is set during the Spanish Civil War, a brutal conflict where brother fought against brother and ideals were stronger than fear. In the middle of this chaos, we meet Robert Jordan. He is not Spanish. He is an American. A young man who has come from far away, not for glory, not for fame, but because he believes in a cause. Robert Jordan is a dynamiter. His job is simple on paper, but terrifying in reality. He is assigned to blow up a bridge. That bridge is not just stone and steel. It is a lifeline for enemy troops. Destroying it could change the course of a major attack. But it also means certain danger and almost certain death. From the very beginning, Robert knows the truth. This mission is probably a one-way journey. As he travels into the mountains, he joins a small group of guerrilla fighters hiding in the forest. They are rough people, tired people, people who have seen too much violence. They don't talk about heroism. They talk about survival. The leader of this group is Pablo. Once a brave fighter, now a broken man. Fear has slowly eaten his courage. He drinks too much. He doubts everything. He no longer believes in sacrifice. And then there is Pilar. Strong, fearless, wise. She is the real strength of the group. She understands people. She understands fear. And she understands what war does to the human soul. As Robert settles into this group, tension is everywhere. Trust is fragile. Everyone knows the mission is dangerous. Everyone knows that blowing up the bridge will bring the enemy down on them like fire from the sky. And yet, something unexpected happens. Robert meets Maria. Maria is young, quiet. Her hair has been cut short, not by choice, but by cruelty. She has survived horrors that no one should ever experience. Her past is full of pain, loss, and violence. She has lost her family. She has lost her innocence. And she is still trying to learn how to live again. From the moment Robert and Maria meet, something changes. In the middle of war, love appears. Not slow love, not careful love, but intense, desperate love. Because when death is close, emotions don't wait. They fall in love quickly, deeply, completely. They cling to each other as if love itself can protect them from bullets and bombs. And this love becomes the emotional heart of the story. Because now the mission is no longer just about the bridge. It is about what Robert is willing to lose and what he is willing to die for. As the hours pass, Robert carefully studies the bridge. He plans every detail. The explosives, the timing, the escape. But plans mean nothing in war. Pablo becomes more dangerous with every passing hour. Fear turns him into a threat from within. At one point, he even steals the detonators, the very tools needed to complete the mission. This is one of the most painful truths Hemingway shows us. Sometimes the greatest danger is not the enemy in front of you, but fear inside the people standing beside you. Despite everything, Robert chooses to continue. Because he believes that some actions matter beyond the individual. He believes that a single sacrifice can serve something larger. But Hemingway never lets this belief feel simple or heroic. Robert constantly questions himself. Is this cause worth dying for? Is any political idea worth a human life? Is love a weakness? Or the strongest reason to keep going? These questions sit quietly beneath every conversation. As the final day approaches, tension becomes unbearable. The sound of planes fills the sky. The enemy is moving. Time is running out. And then the mission begins. The bridge explodes. The earth shakes. Smoke fills the air. The enemy attacks immediately. Chaos replaces planning. People die. Friends fall. Dreams end in seconds. Robert is badly injured. His leg is shattered. He cannot escape. And here, the novel reaches its most powerful moment. Robert Jordan understands the truth. He will not survive. So he makes a choice. He sends Maria away. Not because he loves her less, but because he loves her more than his own life. He chooses to stay behind, alone, with a gun. Not to save himself, but to give others a chance to live. As he waits for the enemy to come, he thinks about his life. About love. About fear. About how short and precious every moment truly is. He is not afraid anymore. And this is where the title of the book finally reveals its meaning. For whom the bell tolls. The bell does not toll only for the dead soldier. It tolls for all of us. Because every death diminishes humanity. Because no life exists in isolation. Because when one person falls, the whole world feels it, even if it doesn't realize it. Hemingway is not glorifying war. He is exposing it. He shows us that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite it. He shows us that love does not make us weak. It reminds us why life matters. And he shows us that meaning is not found in survival alone, but in what we are willing to stand for. This book leaves us with silence. Not loud conclusions. Not easy answers. Just silence. And a question. If you had only 3 days left, what would you choose to fight for? And who do you choose to love? This is not just a novel. This is a mirror. And once you look into it, you are never quite the same again. The silence after that final moment is heavy. Not empty, but full. Full of everything that could not be said. Full of lives interrupted. Full of questions that refuse to leave the mind. And this is where the real power of this story begins to unfold. Because For Whom the Bell Tolls is not meant to end when the action ends. It continues inside the reader. It stays with you long after the last page is turned. Hemingway wants us to sit with the discomfort, with the truth that war does not give clean endings, with the reality that even the bravest choices come with unbearable cost. Robert Jordan's final stand is not written like a heroic speech. There are no dramatic words, no celebration, only quiet resolve. And that is exactly the point. Hemingway strips heroism of its shine. He shows us that real courage often happens without witnesses, without applause, without certainty that it even matters. Robert does not know if the mission will succeed. He does not know if history will remember him. All he knows is that in this moment, staying behind gives others a chance. And for him, that is enough. Throughout the novel, Hemingway keeps returning to one idea again and again. That individual lives are small, but not meaningless. That a single action, even if forgotten, still carries weight. This idea is reflected in every character. Pablo represents what happens when fear takes control. He is not evil. He is human. He has seen too much death. And at some point, survival becomes more important than belief. Pilar represents memory and conscience. She remembers who they once were. She remembers why they started fighting. She carries the moral weight of the group. Maria represents innocence that has been shattered, but not destroyed. She is living proof that even after unimaginable cruelty, the human heart can still open itself to love. And Robert stands in the middle of all of this, pulled between duty and desire, between ideology and emotion, between life and death. What makes this novel timeless is not its political background. It is its honesty. Hemingway does not tell us who is completely right or completely wrong. He shows us people trying to do their best in impossible circumstances. He shows us how war forces people to make choices they would never make in peace. Choices that stay with them forever. The bridge itself becomes a powerful symbol. It connects two sides, just as Robert is caught between two worlds. America and Spain. Love and duty. Hope and despair. And when the bridge is destroyed, it is not a victory. It is a reminder. A reminder that every act of violence destroys something human along with it. The title, taken from an old meditation by John Donne, echoes through the entire novel. It tells us that death is never personal alone. It is shared. It ripples outward. When Robert falls, the bell tolls for Maria, for Pilar, for Pablo, for every soldier on every side of every war. And for us, because the novel quietly asks us something uncomfortable. Are we really so separate from suffering that happens far away? Or do we simply choose not to hear the bell? This is why For Whom the Bell Tolls still matters today. Because the world is still full of conflicts, still full of divided beliefs, still full of people asked to sacrifice everything for ideas they barely understand, and still full of individuals searching for meaning in chaos. Hemingway does not offer hope in the traditional sense. He offers clarity. He tells us that meaning is not guaranteed. It is chosen. That love is not safe. But it is worth it. That life is fragile. But that fragility is what gives it value. And perhaps the most haunting truth of all, that we often understand what truly matters only when we are about to lose it. When the story ends, Robert Jordan is lying on the forest floor. The enemy is coming. His heart is steady. And in that moment, he is complete. Not because he survived, but because he lived fully, even if briefly. And that is the quiet message Hemingway leaves us with. You do not need a long life to live a meaningful one. You need courage. You need love. And you need the willingness to accept the cost. This book does not shout. It whispers. And those whispers stay with you long after the bell has stopped ringing. As we go deeper into this story, something becomes clear with every passing scene. This is not a novel about winning a war. It is a novel about understanding life when everything familiar is stripped away. Hemingway places his characters in a world where normal rules no longer apply. Time feels different. 3 days feel like a lifetime. Every conversation carries the weight of a possible goodbye. Robert Jordan begins the story as a man defined by skill and discipline. He trusts planning. He believes in logic. He believes that if you do your job well enough, the outcome will justify the risk. But what slowly dismantles this belief? No matter how carefully he plans, chaos keeps entering the picture. People hesitate. People panic. People change their minds. And this is where the novel quietly shifts from a war narrative into something much deeper. It becomes a meditation on control. Hemingway shows us that human beings desperately want to believe they are in control of their lives. We plan careers. We plan futures. We plan happiness. But when real crisis arrives, control slips through our fingers. Robert cannot control Pablo's fear. He cannot control the timing of the attack. He cannot control his injury. And ultimately, he cannot control his own survival. The only thing he can control is how he responds. And this is where the book makes its most powerful philosophical statement. Meaning is not found in outcomes. Meaning is found in choice. Robert chooses to stay. He chooses to give others time. He chooses to face death with dignity. That choice is his victory. Love, in this novel, is not presented as comfort. It is presented as risk. Robert and Maria's love is intense because it has no illusion of permanence. They do not dream of growing old together. They dream of tomorrow morning. And that makes every touch, every word, every shared silence feel urgent. Hemingway seems to be saying something very uncomfortable here. That we often waste love when we think we have endless time. That we only truly value it when time becomes limited. Maria does not save Robert from death. And Robert does not save Maria from pain, but they save each other from emptiness. For a brief moment in the middle of destruction, they feel fully alive. And that matters. Another quiet theme running through the novel is memory. Pillar's long stories about past violence are not there to shock us. They are there to show how trauma lives on. War does not end when the shooting stops. It stays in the mind. It shapes behavior. It turns brave men into frightened ones. It turns strong women into witnesses who carry unbearable truth. Pablo's betrayal is not just cowardice. It is exhaustion. He has reached a point where survival feels more valuable than meaning. And Hemingway does not condemn him completely for that. Instead, he asks us to understand him. Because the novel refuses to divide people into heroes and villains. It divides them into the living and the broken. The bridge, once again, returns as a symbol. Before its destruction, it represents connection, movement, progress. After its destruction, it represents loss, separation, and irreversible change. Once the bridge is gone, nothing can return to how it was. And that is exactly how war works. You cannot undo what has been done. You cannot bring back who you were before. By the time Robert lies waiting in the forest, he has already crossed his own bridge. There is no return to the man he was at the beginning. And strangely, there is peace in that. Hemingway does something very rare here. He lets his character accept death without bitterness. Not because death is good, but because resistance has ended. Robert does not die angry at the world. He dies connected to it. He thinks of Maria. He thinks of the people he fought beside. He thinks of the earth beneath him. And in that moment, he understands what the bell truly means. It is not a warning. It is not a punishment. It is a reminder that every life matters, that every death echoes, that none of us are alone, even in our final moment. This is why the novel still speaks to modern readers. Because we live in a world that still glorifies speed, success, and survival, but rarely talks about meaning. This book slows us down. It forces us to sit with discomfort. It asks us to consider what we would choose if time suddenly became precious. Would we still chase the same things? Would we still postpone love? Would we still avoid difficult truths? Or would we finally listen to the bell? Hemingway leaves us without answers because he trusts the reader to find their own. And that trust is powerful. Because once you finish this book, you don't feel entertained. You feel changed. You feel quieter, more aware, more connected to lives you will never meet. And maybe that is the greatest achievement of all. Not to make us feel strong, but to make us feel human. After the final page, something unusual happens. You don't rush to close the book. You don't feel relief. You just sit there quietly. Because the story doesn't end with Robert Jordan's last breath. It ends with a feeling that lingers. A feeling that asks you to look at your own life. Hemingway understood something very few writers truly grasp. That the most powerful endings are not loud. They don't explain themselves. They simply stop and let the reader continue the story internally. When Robert is left alone in the forest, time seems to stretch. The world slows down. Every sound becomes sharp. Every thought becomes heavy. This is not just a man waiting to die. This is a human being fully present in his final moment. And that presence is what makes the ending unforgettable. Throughout the novel, characters are constantly moving, planning, arguing, fighting, running. But at the end, movement disappears. Only awareness remains. Robert does not think about medals. He does not think about history books. He does not think about being remembered. He thinks about connection, about Maria's face, about shared laughter, about moments that proved his life was real. And in doing so, Hemingway quietly redefines success. Success is not survival at any cost. Success is not victory over others. Success is living in a way that makes sacrifice meaningful. This idea can be uncomfortable because it challenges the modern obsession with safety, comfort, and control. The novel does not encourage recklessness, but it does challenge emptiness. It asks us whether we are truly living or simply avoiding risk. Because the tragedy of Robert Jordan is not that he dies young. The tragedy would have been if he had lived without meaning. And that is the deeper emotional impact of the book. It reminds us that life is fragile, not to frighten us, but to wake us up. Maria's future is left uncertain. We don't know what happens to her, and that uncertainty is intentional. Hemingway refuses to give us closure. Because war does not give closure. Loss does not give closure. Life moves forward carrying absence with it. And Maria must carry Robert forward in memory. Just as Pillar carries the memory of violence. Just as Pablo carries the memory of fear. Just as the land itself carries the scars of conflict. The novel becomes a quiet argument against indifference. It tells us that every choice matters, even the small ones, even the unseen ones, because everything is connected. The bell does not ring only on battlefields. It rings in hospitals, in homes, in moments of silent loss. And most of the time, we ignore it. We keep scrolling. We keep rushing. We keep postponing meaning. Hemingway asks us to stop, to listen, to remember that we are part of something larger than ourselves. That love is not guaranteed. That time is not promised. That courage often appears only when escape is no longer possible. And perhaps the most haunting realization the book leaves us with is this: that we often wait for a crisis to tell us how to live. When in truth, we already know. We know who we love. We know what matters. We know what we are afraid to face. The bell is already ringing. We just have to decide whether to hear it. This is why For Whom the Bell Tolls is not just a classic. It is a quiet challenge passed from one generation to the next. A reminder that no life is isolated. No choice is meaningless. No moment is small. And when one person stands with dignity in the face of fear, something in the world stands with them. Even if no one sees it. Even if history forgets. By the time this story reaches its quiet end, something inside the listener has shifted. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but gently and permanently. Because For Whom the Bell Tolls does not try to teach you a lesson. It simply places you in front of a truth and lets you decide what to do with it. The truth that life is not measured by length. It is measured by depth. Robert Jordan's life, short as it is, feels complete because he is awake inside it. He feels love fully. He feels fear honestly. And when the moment comes, he does not turn away. That is what stays with us. Not the explosions, not the politics, but the courage to remain present when everything is at stake. Hemingway quietly suggests that most of us are not afraid of dying. We are afraid of never truly living. We postpone joy. We delay honesty. We wait for a better time to love, to forgive, to choose what matters. But the novel reminds us that time does not announce itself. It disappears silently, just like those 3 days in the mountains. And maybe that is why this book still speaks across decades. Because the human condition has not changed. We are still searching for meaning, still divided by ideas, still trying to balance survival with purpose. The bell still tolls, not just for soldiers, but for moments lost, for words unsaid, for love left unchosen. And Hemingway does something brave here. He trusts the reader. He trusts that we don't need comfort. We need honesty. So he leaves us without reassurance, without a promise that everything will be okay. Instead, he leaves us with responsibility. The responsibility to listen, to care, to recognize that every life we touch matters. Because no one lives alone, and no one suffers alone, even when it feels that way. As this story closes, it quietly turns the mirror toward us. What bridge are you standing in front of? What fear is asking you to retreat? What love are you protecting or avoiding? You don't need a war to ask these questions. You just need awareness. And that is the final gift of this novel. It does not end when the book ends. It begins. It begins in the silence after the last line, in the pause before you move on, in the moment you realize that life, right now, is asking something of you. And maybe, just maybe, if we listen closely enough, we can hear the bell and choose to live in a way that honors its sound. This has been For Whom the Bell Tolls on English Bookshelf. Not a story about death, but a reminder of how precious life truly is.